Capitol Hill to Wall Street. This is Politics and Profits with your host, Rick Amato.
Welcome, everybody. I'm Rick Amato. It's time for Politics and Profits.
We follow the trends on Capitol Hill that lead to the profits on Wall Street. We expose the hard facts of what your elected officials are doing when you're not looking. And we show you how you can profit from their politics. The American dream is alive and well, and you can be proud to call America your home. And now, it's Rick Amato.
Welcome to Politics and Profits. All right, my next guest is someone who a lot of our viewers are very familiar with. He appears on a lot of television shows, a lot of radio shows across America. He's the editorial director of an up-and-coming new news site called Reactionary Times. Perhaps you've seen him on Newsmax TV or RT TV. Let me welcome Julio Rivera. Julio, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you so much for having me, Rick.
Our pleasure. Julio, let's get right to it. We're down to crunch time on the election. You're following this stuff closely. Now you are of Puerto Rican heritage, as I understand, and I say that because the governor of Puerto Rico has come out and endorsed Donald Trump. Did that surprise you at all?
Well, I mean, she kind of had to, because if not, she would have been left with a lot of egg on her face. The fact of the matter is, and this is something that I remember discussing with you a couple of years back around the time of the hurricane, there was a lot of fraud in Puerto Rico, and there has been for a long time. It basically ran like a banana republic. The Puerto Rico Electric Power Authority raising all this money and giving kickbacks to politicians as they went ahead and basically squandered about $10 billion that they were supposed to use to shore up the power grid. And then what happens? You get hit with a hurricane, FEMA has to come in. President Trump rolls in with the power of FEMA and the American military as the hero. And of course, liberal politicians on the island want to make him look bad. So you had people hoarding supplies. You had politicians keeping supplies and making sure that they were being given out initially to families within their districts that had actually donated to the campaign. Could you imagine having aid withheld unless you were somebody who donated to the politician? So there's really a lot of fraud going on down there. And finally, when the FBI and the Department of Justice uncovered a lot of this stuff, the governor was put in a tight spot where they had to throw their support behind Donald Trump, because otherwise they might have looked criminally complicit in a lot of the fraud that took place on the island post the hurricane season of 2017. That's
a good point, and you're right. I had forgotten. You and I discussed that hurricane a few years ago. What's your take on the Democrats? Of course, the media, they position Donald Trump as a racist when it comes to legalization of immigration. When it comes to immigration in general, what's your take on this? The whole politicalization of immigration with Democrats and Trump.
Well, I love talking about this subject, Rick, because, it really points out the hypocrisy of the left. For years, they sat out there and they tried to, use the imagery of the dreamers. And remember the famous Time magazine cover of the little girl looking up at President Trump begging to be allowed into the country. And, Obama touting the fact that he granted permanent second-class status to 600 to 800,000 illegal residents, when President Trump in 2018 offered to grant legalization to 1.8 million illegal residents. Now that's the 600 to 800,000 estimated dreamers plus 1 million more.
Wow.
And all he wanted was an end to chain migration, which is a perfectly reasonable request when you consider that chain migration adds a lot to our debt, to the money that we have to spend in services and entitlements, because a lot of these people come here with no skills. People bring their aunts, their uncles, their sick mothers and grandparents, and next thing you know, we're doling out a lot of money on welfare, and that really hits the American taxpayer, where it hurts in the wallet. But President Trump just wanted $25 billion for a border wall, in addition to the end of, perfectly reasonable request to end chain migration. These Democrats balked at that. They did not want President Trump to provide a permanent end to this issue, because the Democrats like to use illegal immigrants as a pawn every election cycle to try to make Republicans seem either xenophobic or insensitive to their plight. And I think it's sick, because if they really did truly care about brown people, they would have taken President Trump on their offer. And think about what $25 billion really is. This year, we added $6 trillion to the debt because of all this spending related to the coronavirus and the HEROES Act and the stimulus packages and all of this. And how many tens of billions of dollars of that was pork barrel spending that the Democrats just had to get into those stimulus packages? For just $25 billion, they could have given 1.8 million illegal residents a pathway to citizenship and taken them out of what really is either living in the shadows or having, permanent second-class status in America.
Julio, you bring up an excellent point. And as I listen to you talk about it, I wonder why this Trump campaign has not emphasized that story more dramatically than they have. In fact, maybe I've missed it, but I have not heard anyone during this campaign talk about it the way that you just did. It is an excellent point, and I believe that it would resonate with the common American person. I say common, not someone on the far left or on the far right, someone who's hasn't made their mind up yet and is open to new ideas. Shame on the Trump campaign for not saying what you just said, because it's a great point. Now, Julio, we're down the last couple minutes here. What I want to do is take the remaining moments, tell our viewers about Reactionary Times. You got a great news site. It's new. It's up and coming. You're a great personality for that news site. Tell our viewers about it.
Well, I am the editorial director of reactionarytimes.com. We're a who, what, when, where, why kind of news site. I mean, our news section is just the facts and no spin. That's actually our tagline: real news, accurate and unspun. Now, we do have a fantastic opinion section, which is some of the best, brightest conservative minds in the world contribute to us. We have great contributors like Ernest Istook, who's a former congressman. We've gotten columns from people like George Landreth, Horace Cooper, Cindy Gross, who writes on issues important to Israel, and Dan Was, Second Amendment buff, the author Ed Brado. A lot of great writers contribute to reactionarytimes.com as far as our opinion section. So if you want to get some really good conservative outlooks and ideas and what's next, for America, as far as on the conservative side, definitely come to reactionarytimes.com. And we produce Reactionary Times TV, which is a weekly episodic show. We do the headlines at the beginning of the show, a panel. This week's show, you can catch it on our YouTube. It should be already up by the time people are watching this, with Scotty Nell Hughes and Alan West, who's a regular guest. We do a spotlight feature where we talk about a news story that's underreported by the mainstream media, a weekend conversation. And then I usually finish it off with what's called the final word, which is basically telling you an in-depth narrative about something that's going on, very important in the news that you may not have heard about.
And with that, we'll have to make that the final word. Julio Rivera, as always, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Rick. God bless you.
Broadcasting from the Liberatory CPA studios, we're back after this.
Politics and Profits with Rick Amato is brought to you by Liberatory Accounting, the IRS problem solvers. To find out how Liberatory Accounting can help you, call 877-6-SOLVER. That's 877-6-SOLVER.